The dense forests of Montana stretched endlessly, a living labyrinth of shadows and whispering leaves. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, the kind of wilderness that promised adventure and danger in equal measure. It was early September 2024, and four men, seasoned hunters, were preparing for a weekend that none of them could have imagined. John, the oldest of the group at 34, adjusted his wide-brimmed hat and scanned the tree line. He was a methodical man, cautious yet decisive, with a reputation for never missing his mark. Rock, a burly man with a calm demeanor, checked his rifle's scope with a practiced eye. Jeps, wiry and restless, fidgeted with his binoculars, his excitement barely contained. And Mason, the youngest, eager but untested, carefully loaded his gear, oblivious to the weight of the adventure awaiting them. Before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel, and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. Their plan was simple. Set up camp deep in the forest, hunt deer, and experience the serenity of untamed wilderness. But the forest had other plans. As they trudged through the underbrush, the afternoon sun filtered through the canopy in golden beams, illuminating patches of the forest floor, but leaving vast stretches in shadow. Every rustle, every snap of a twig was amplified in the silence, making their hearts race with anticipation. By evening, they had chosen a clearing for their camp. John directed the setup, each man knowing his role. The fire pit was arranged, tents pitched, and a small perimeter cleared for safety. The forest was alive with nocturnal sounds, hoots of owls, rustling of leaves, and distant, unidentifiable calls that made the men exchange uneasy glances. They tried to dismiss it as wildlife, but instinct whispered caution. As night fell, the temperature dropped. The men gathered around the fire, its flames casting flickering shadows on their tense faces. They shared stories of previous hunts, of near misses and lucky shots, but an unspoken anxiety lingered. The forest seemed too quiet, almost anticipatory, as if it were holding its breath. Around midnight, John noticed a strange glimmer through the trees, far in the distance. It wasn't the familiar reflection of moonlight on a branch or the eyes of a nocturnal animal. It was something else, a faint, almost ethereal glow, hovering and moving in ways that defied logic. He nudged Rock, pointing discreetly. The others followed his gaze, their initial skepticism fading into unease. Jeps whispered, Is that a light?" His voice trembled slightly, betraying excitement and fear. Mason, leaning forward, squinted through his binoculars. What they saw made their stomachs churn. A circular, metallic object silently hovering above the forest floor, pulsating with a strange, bluish light. Its movements were deliberate, intelligent, unlike anything they had encountered in the natural world. The four men froze. The hunter's instinct battled with the rational mind. This was not a deer, not a bear, not any known creature of the forest. The object descended slowly, revealing its full form. A disc-shaped craft, smooth and almost liquid in its contours, surrounded by a faint, glowing aura. And then they saw them. Figures moving around it. Humanoid, yet not human. Their skin shimmered slightly, reflecting the craft's glow. They were collecting samples, soil, plants, perhaps even the forest air, methodically, as if documenting everything. Rock let out a barely audible gasp. "What the hell?" he muttered. Jeps, ever impulsive, wanted to move closer, to get a better look. John restrained him, whispering, "Stay put. We don't know what we're dealing with." Mason clutched his rifle, though the thought of firing seemed almost laughable against whatever was happening before them. Suddenly, the figures noticed them. The glowing eyes, if eyes they had, fixed on the hunters. The bluish light from the craft intensified, casting the men's shadows in unnatural angles. The beings approached, their movements precise and unnervingly silent. The four hunters retreated into the safety of the nearest trees, hearts pounding in terror and fascination. What followed was a tense standoff. The beings didn't attack immediately, but their presence was overpowering. The hunters could feel an almost tangible intelligence analyzing them, studying their reactions. Every instinct screamed danger, yet curiosity chained them in place, forcing their eyes to follow every movement. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the craft lifted silently, the beams retreating back into its metallic belly. The glow faded, leaving the forest in its natural darkness once more. The men emerged from their hiding spots, shaken, speechless, and profoundly aware of their own fragility in the face of something utterly unknown. For the rest of the night, sleep was impossible. Every crack of a branch, every whisper of wind against the tent felt amplified, carrying the unspoken warning of the encounter. When dawn finally broke, casting soft light over the forest, the hunters exchanged silent looks, understanding without words that nothing would ever be the same. The wilderness had revealed a secret, an intelligence beyond human comprehension, and they had been its unwilling witnesses. By morning, they packed up, their hunt forgotten, replaced by the weight of what they had seen. But even as they left the clearing behind, a lingering feeling persisted. The forest watched, remembered, and perhaps even waited for them to return.
The events of the previous night weighed heavily on John, Rock, Jeps, and Mason, though they spoke little of what they had witnessed. The forest had kept its secret, but the hunters had glimpsed a truth that defied reason. As the four men drove back to the nearest town, their minds were filled with questions with no answers, and a growing unease that gnawed at their rationality. The sky, still tinged with the faint remnants of dawn, seemed unnaturally bright, as though the world itself had sensed the intrusion of something beyond comprehension. Meanwhile, authorities had taken notice. The local Department of Wildlife and Environmental Studies had received reports of unusual sightings and unexplainable disturbances in the Montana wilderness. A specialized task force was quickly assembled, comprising 4 trained investigators, people with experience in field work, data collection, and handling potentially dangerous or unknown phenomena. Their mission was clear: investigate, observe, and document any anomalies, and if possible, collect evidence. This new team arrived the very next day. Their vehicles rolled along the forest's edge, carefully maneuvering over the rugged terrain. Each member carried a full array of equipment: high-resolution cameras, night vision goggles, thermal imaging devices, and sensors designed to detect electromagnetic fluctuations. Their expertise was unquestionable, but even the most seasoned investigator could not have anticipated what lay ahead. They set up camp near the clearing reported by the hunters. Large tents were erected, perimeter lines marked, and surveillance equipment deployed at strategic points. The team moved with precision, their experience allowing them to cover every potential entry point of the forest while maintaining strict safety protocols. By dusk, the camp was operational. Lights were kept low to avoid attracting unwanted attention, and all members remained vigilant. The first night was quiet. Despite their preparation and heightened awareness, nothing unusual occurred. The forest hummed with its usual nocturnal symphony, with owls calling and leaves rustling in the gentle wind. Thermal cameras and motion detectors registered only wildlife: deer, foxes, and the occasional raccoon. Nothing that indicated the presence of anything artificial or extraterrestrial. Day 2 passed in similar silence. The team patrolled the perimeter during daylight, mapping out terrain, checking for tracks or signs of intrusion. Even as they examined the soil and vegetation meticulously, their efforts yielded nothing out of the ordinary. One investigator, Karen, noted unusual soil compaction in a small area, but it seemed consistent with natural erosion and animal activity. The camp remained on high alert, yet no sign of the disc-shaped craft or its enigmatic occupants emerged. By the third day, tension began to rise among the team. The unpredictability of the previous night's events weighed heavily on their minds. Discussions became hushed, movements cautious. Even a snapping twig elicited startled reactions. Nightfall brought a nervous energy that was almost palpable, a subtle tremor in their voices and the way they handled equipment. Each member was acutely aware of the stakes. They were in the heart of a wilderness that had already proven it could harbor unimaginable mysteries. This third night, the forest seemed eerily still. The usual chorus of nocturnal creatures had quieted, and the moon cast long, distorted shadows through the trees. The team gathered in the central tent, reviewing camera footage and comparing notes. Every piece of evidence from the previous nights was analyzed meticulously, yet the conclusion remained the same. Nothing tangible had been observed. The craft had eluded detection, or perhaps it had simply not returned. John, who had been part of the earlier hunter's encounter, could feel a familiar tension creeping back. He couldn't shake the memory of glowing figures, their movements calculated, intelligent, and utterly alien. He whispered to Rock, "It's like it knows we're here, but it's waiting, watching." Rock nodded grimly, his jaw tight. The rest of the team remained quiet, sensing the weight of his words but unwilling to voice their own fears. The next morning, the investigators decided to extend their observation period. They deployed additional sensors deeper into the forest, including infrared cameras and vibration detectors capable of sensing minute disturbances in the soil. Each sensor was camouflaged meticulously to avoid detection. Patrols covered more ground than ever before, their routines designed to maximize the chances of spotting any anomaly. Yet despite all precautions, the forest yielded nothing. The task force began to question whether the reported sightings were simply a product of imagination or coincidence. By the fourth day, morale was beginning to waver. The team huddled around the faint glow of portable lanterns in the central tent, reviewing every piece of recorded data. Each investigator maintained a professional exterior, but beneath it, anxiety simmered. The forest had become a place of tension and anticipation. It was as though every rustle of leaves, every flutter of wings might signal the arrival of something inexplicable. Despite the lack of evidence, the psychological strain was undeniable. Late that night, as the wind whispered through the pines, something shifted in the air. A faint blue hue appeared on the horizon, distant yet unmistakable. The investigators froze, staring at the subtle luminescence with mounting apprehension. It was not a star, not a reflection, not any known natural phenomenon. The glow pulsed faintly, almost rhythmically, like a heartbeat. John was the first to react, signaling the team to remain silent. They climbed out of the tent, moving cautiously toward the edge of the clearing, their breath forming misty clouds in the cold night air. The forest felt different now, charged, electric, almost sentient. The blue light grew stronger as they advanced, revealing subtle shifts in the canopy. Leaves and branches shimmered unnaturally under its glow. Then, without warning, a disc-shaped craft descended silently into the clearing. Its metallic surface reflected the faint blue light, casting shimmering patterns across the surrounding trees. The alien figures emerged once more, humanoid yet otherworldly, moving with purpose, collecting samples from the forest floor. Their presence was both mesmerizing and terrifying. The investigators watched, frozen by a combination of awe and fear. Jeps, unable to contain his curiosity, whispered, "It's real. It's actually real." Mason's hand trembled as he adjusted his binoculars. The beings moved systematically, interacting with their surroundings in a manner that suggested advanced intelligence. Every motion was precise, deliberate, yet entirely alien. The craft hovered silently, the air around it shimmering with energy. The team instinctively split into groups, each covering different angles to avoid detection. They moved with caution, attempting to document every detail without alerting the occupants. Despite their training and preparation, there was a tangible risk. These beings were unlike anything encountered before. Their technology, their movements, their very presence suggested capabilities far beyond human understanding. Minutes passed like hours. The investigators noted the equipment and methods employed by the beings. Small handheld devices emitted pulses of colored light, scanning and analyzing the forest floor. The beings collected samples, storing them in containers of unknown material. Their attention to detail was meticulous, indicating an understanding of biology, chemistry, and physics that was far beyond contemporary human science. Then, suddenly, one of the beings paused and looked directly at the investigators. The blue light in its eyes, or what appeared to be eyes, focused on the team. A chill ran down their spines as they realized they had been detected. The craft's glow intensified, illuminating the forest in a surreal, almost otherworldly light. The investigators held their ground, hearts pounding, understanding that their actions in the next moments could determine whether they survived this encounter. The being approached cautiously, its movements deliberate. The forest seemed to hold its breath as it drew closer. The investigators remained silent, documenting and observing, unsure whether to flee or stay. The tension was unbearable, every second stretching into an eternity. Then, as if deciding the outcome themselves, the beings retreated. The craft rose silently, vanishing into the night sky as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the forest in darkness once more. The investigators exhaled collectively, a mixture of relief, fear, and exhilaration washing over them. They knew they had witnessed something extraordinary, something that defied explanation. Yet despite the clarity of their observations, tangible evidence remained scarce. The forest returned to its natural state, and for the rest of the night, only the sounds of wildlife filled the air.
The forest had settled into a deceptive calm. Days of waiting, patrolling, and meticulous observation had yielded nothing substantial. Yet, as night fell on the fourth evening, the air itself seemed charged with anticipation. A faint, unnatural hum permeated the clearing, subtle at first, but growing stronger, vibrating through the soil and the very bones of those who dared to stand in its presence. The investigators and hunters, now united in a silent alliance, felt an unspoken understanding. Tonight, whatever had haunted the forest would reveal itself. John signaled for caution. "Stay close and no sudden moves," he whispered. The others nodded, their eyes scanning the dense darkness, ears straining against the soft whispers of the wind. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle potentially masking something otherworldly. The forest had become a living entity, observant, patient, and dangerous in ways they could not yet comprehend. Then, as they reached the midpoint of the clearing, the night sky split with a sudden burst of electric blue light. The ground beneath them shivered as if responding to a hidden force. The disc-shaped craft descended silently, hovering mere feet above the forest floor. Its metallic surface reflected the moonlight, casting surreal patterns across the surrounding trees. The hunters and investigators froze, both in awe and terror. The craft's underside opened slowly, revealing an interior that glowed with shifting colors. From within emerged a figure, humanoid but unmistakably alien. Its limbs were elongated, skin shimmering with a subtle metallic hue, and its eyes, or what passed for eyes, radiated an intelligence that seemed almost sentient. In its hands were strange devices that emitted beams of multicolored light, scanning the forest floor as it moved. The team instinctively split into strategic positions. John and Rock took the left flank, Jeps and Mason moved right,
while the investigators maintained central observation. Every movement was deliberate. The air was thick with tension. Their training collided with instinct, the thrill of the unknown battling the fear of immediate danger. The alien's attention shifted. It had detected them. The glow from its devices intensified, bathing the forest in pulsating light. The hunters' hearts pounded in unison, each beat echoing the rhythm of the craft's luminescent pulses. There was no doubt the being was aware, calculating, and assessing them in ways no human could. Mason whispered, barely audible, It's watching us, every move." Suddenly, with remarkable agility, the alien launched itself forward. Its movements were swift, fluid, and precise, defying conventional understanding of gravity or human physicality. The hunters and investigators reacted instantly. Rock fired a warning shot into the air, a signal rather than an attack. The being didn't falter. Its devices emitted sudden arcs of colored light, narrowly missing Jeps who rolled to the side to avoid a dangerous discharge. Sparks danced along the forest floor, illuminating leaves and branches in vibrant, eerie hues. The encounter escalated rapidly. The hunters attempted to surround the alien, moving with calculated coordination. John, leading the front, gestured to Mason to flank from the right, while Rock attempted to distract the being, but each strategy seemed anticipated. The alien moved as though it could predict their actions, its intelligence and reflexes far surpassing human capability. Every step the hunters took was met with a counter, every advance thwarted by movements that were impossible to anticipate. Despite the alien's precision, the hunters were determined. Their mission was clear: capture, observe, and survive. Jeps managed to approach cautiously, attempting to grab one of the alien's devices. The alien reacted instantly, spinning and emitting a bright pulse that sent them sprawling. Leaves, branches, and debris filled the air, creating a chaotic blur. The alien's presence was overwhelming, not merely because of its strength, but because of the sheer sense of awareness it exuded. It was not just defending itself, it was evaluating, learning, and adapting in real time. Then came a brief lull. The alien paused, scanning the team with what seemed like a mixture of curiosity and assessment. Its devices hummed, recording, scanning, analyzing. This was the moment the hunters had been waiting for. John whispered a plan. "We go in together. No hesitation." With coordinated precision, the hunters surged forward, attempting to subdue the being without harming it lethally. The struggle was intense. Mason grappled with one of the alien's limbs, while Rock attempted to secure the scanning device. Jeps lunged toward the glowing apparatus, fingers brushing against its surface. Sparks of energy shot out, throwing them back, leaving charred marks on their jackets and skin. John, ever precise, managed to momentarily restrain one arm, but the alien twisted effortlessly, breaking free with a strength that defied physics. The forest seemed to close in around them, shadows stretching unnaturally. The alien, realizing it was in danger, initiated its retreat. The disk's lights flickered rapidly as if responding to a command, and it rose silently into the air. The hunters were left momentarily stunned, some nursing minor injuries, others simply catching their breath. The alien had escaped, leaving behind fragments of its devices and a single, small, pulsating orb that shimmered with internal energy. The orb was unlike anything they had seen. It seemed alive, responding to their presence with subtle pulses of light. John picked it up carefully, aware that it could contain data, energy, or something beyond comprehension. The investigators examined the remaining devices, documenting and collecting samples for later study.
Despite the aliens' escape, the encounter had provided something tangible, evidence of intelligence far beyond their own. As dawn broke over the forest, painting the sky in muted shades of pink and gold, the hunters and investigators regrouped. Their exhaustion was profound, but so was their exhilaration. They had faced the unknown, observed a being of unfathomable capability, and survived. Yet the questions remained. What was its purpose? Why had it come here? What could they do with the information they had gathered? Even as they packed their gear, a lingering sense of unease remained. The forest, once silent and watchful, now seemed almost sentient. Every rustle of leaves, every shifting shadow seemed imbued with hidden meaning. The hunters and investigators knew this was not the end. Whatever they had encountered was patient, intelligent, and aware, and it would return. In the days following, the orb and devices were placed under strict containment for analysis. Scientists and government officials were called in, their expertise applied to deciphering the technology and biology left behind. Preliminary findings suggested materials and mechanisms far beyond contemporary science. The orb emitted subtle magnetic pulses, fluctuating in intensity, hinting at an internal energy source that defied conventional physics. The devices showed traces of organic material unlike anything cataloged in known databases. The hunters, though back in their homes, could not shake the memory of the glowing figures, the pulsing lights, and the alien intelligence that had observed them so closely. They shared their accounts cautiously, aware that public disclosure would lead to disbelief or panic. Yet among themselves, a bond formed, a shared knowledge of an encounter that transcended ordinary experience, a secret too profound to be dismissed.
The forest of Montana had never felt more alive or more threatening. Days had passed since the last encounter, yet the memory of glowing eyes, pulsating lights, and the aliens' almost predatory intelligence haunted the hunters and investigators alike. The orb and devices left behind had been secured in a temporary laboratory, yet their questions remained unanswered. What they had witnessed was no ordinary phenomenon. It was proof of life, intelligence, and technology far beyond human comprehension. John, Rock, Jeps, and Mason, along with the investigators, knew they could not ignore the call of the forest. Something drew them back, a compulsion, a combination of curiosity, duty, and fear. They returned quietly, establishing camp near the last sighting. Equipment was double-checked, sensors positioned strategically, and perimeter patrols organized. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth, yet charged with an almost electric tension. As darkness fell, a faint hum echoed through the trees. The hunters froze. The orb, still in Mason's backpack, pulsed faintly, as if resonating with something in the distance. Then it appeared, a disc-shaped craft, hovering silently above the clearing, lights glowing softly, shifting between blue, green, and violet. The alien emerged, humanoid but otherworldly, its metallic skin shimmering under the craft's luminescence. This was no passive observation. The alien approached, aware of their presence. Its movements were deliberate, fluid, and intelligent, each step echoing the precision of a being that had lived and evolved beyond Earth's limitations. John signaled the team, surround, but do not provoke. Their mission had escalated. Survival and understanding were intertwined. The alien paused, scanning them with devices emitting colored pulses. Each beam of light illuminated the hunters' faces, revealing the fear, determination, and adrenaline that coursed through their veins. Mason, gripping the orb, felt its pulses intensify, almost guiding him. The alien seemed to sense the energy of the device, acknowledging it, curious, cautious. Without warning, the alien lunged. Its agility was unmatched. Rock fired a warning shot, a mere distraction as John and Jeps flanked the being.
Mason, heart pounding, stepped forward, trying to protect the orb. The aliens' devices emitted a surge of energy, arcs of light dancing across the clearing, narrowly missing them. Sparks sizzled against the earth, igniting small fires that were quickly extinguished by the team's quick reactions. The confrontation escalated. The alien, using its advanced understanding of physics and movement, countered every maneuver. It twisted and evaded, emitting pulses that temporarily disrupted electronic equipment. The hunters were forced to rely on instinct, adapting to the being's unpredictable speed and strength. Each action carried risk. Each second could mean life or death. John attempted to grab one of the alien's devices, hoping to gain insight into its technology. The alien reacted instantly, spinning and emitting a blinding flash that forced them to shield their eyes. Jeps gripped the orb, feeling it resonate in his hand as if guiding their actions. The alien paused, its head tilting slightly, analyzing the device and the humans simultaneously. In a brief, tense moment, John whispered, "Now, everyone, together." The hunters advanced in unison, trying to restrain the being without lethal force. Mason, holding the orb, toward the alien. Its pulsing light created a temporary distraction. For a few seconds, the alien faltered, a rare vulnerability. But the forest itself seemed to react. The wind picked up, leaves rustled violently, and shadows deepened, heightening the surreal atmosphere. Despite their coordinated effort, the alien's strength was overwhelming. It twisted, broke free, and prepared to retreat toward the craft. John lunged one last time, attempting to restrain it, but the alien's agility outmatched them. With a powerful leap, it entered the disc-shaped craft, which rose silently into the sky. The team watched helplessly as the alien disappeared into the stars, leaving behind only the orb and fragments of its devices. Though the confrontation had ended, the impact remained. The team collected the devices, documenting every detail for analysis. The orb, still pulsing, was handled with extreme caution. Preliminary examinations suggested it contained data or energy that defied conventional science. The metallic fragments were resilient, light, and strangely warm to the touch, hinting at advanced technology far beyond human capability. The hunters and investigators returned to civilization, forever changed. They had faced a being of unmatched intelligence and power, survived a direct encounter, and gathered evidence that could alter humanity's understanding of life in the universe. Yet the questions remained unanswered. Why here? Why now? What was the purpose of the visitation? As days turned into weeks, government scientists and researchers worked on the orb and devices. Tests revealed energy emissions that could not be replicated, materials that resisted analysis, and signals that hinted at a form of communication beyond conventional language. Despite these efforts, the full nature of the aliens' technology and intentions remained elusive. John and the hunters often met quietly, reflecting on their experience. The forest, once a place of adventure, had revealed itself as a domain of mystery and intelligence. Their encounters with the alien had forged a bond between them and a profound respect for forces beyond comprehension. They understood, on a deeper level than words, that humanity was not alone, and that the forest was a nexus, a place where the extraordinary intersected with the mundane. The orb, stored under strict containment, continued to pulse softly. Scientists noted that its rhythm sometimes synchronized with environmental phenomena, electromagnetic surges, lunar cycles, and even minor seismic activity. It was as though the device was alive, responsive, or communicating with forces unknown. In private, John reflected on the alien itself. Its intelligence, awareness, and methods were unlike anything observed in earthly species. The being's behavior suggested not hostility, but a purpose beyond human understanding. It had acted with precision, avoiding unnecessary harm, yet asserting its presence and protecting its technology. The hunters realized that their survival and the evidence they possessed were not mere coincidence. They had been observed, tested, and perhaps deemed worthy of engagement. Weeks later, Mason received a cryptic message from a federal research agency, a photograph showing the forest clearing at night.
In the distance, barely visible through infrared filters, was a faint, pulsing light, reminiscent of the orb. A chill ran down his spine. The message was clear. The encounter was not over. The forest had not relinquished its secrets. Humanity had witnessed only the beginning. The story officially was classified. Public statements downplayed the events. Routine patrols, environmental surveys, nothing extraordinary. But the hunters and investigators knew the truth. They had glimpsed an intelligence beyond Earth, survived an encounter that defied comprehension, and brought back artifacts that hinted at a universe far richer and stranger than any human mind could imagine. And though the alien had escaped, its presence lingered, not only in the forest, but in their minds, a constant reminder of a reality waiting just beyond perception. They had been changed forever, custodians of a secret humanity was not yet ready to comprehend. The orb continued to pulse softly in its containment, a heartbeat from another world, signaling that the story was far from over. The final thought echoed in John's mind as he stared into the Montana night. We survived, but the forest is still watching, still waiting, and one day it will return.